Okay, I'm going to show you an activity from the book Teaching Music Composition, and this one is called the Runaway Train, and it's a graphic score activity. A lot of you will be familiar with the idea of a graphic score. It's an unconventional way of writing music, and it can have pictures and colours and shapes. It can be round, it can be flat, and it sort of gives an impression of how the music should sound without being as prescriptive as standard notation. This activity hopefully will teach the children a bit about graphic scores, how to play a graphic score, but also how to create music and write a graphic score. The idea is to use it as a way of building their confidence in writing their own music and then playing it. So everything we do, which we write, they should be able to play themselves. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using one of these. This is a P-buzz. If you've not seen it before, it's very much like a trumpet. It's got a trumpet mouthpiece and bell, but it's got a slide on it for changing the notes rather than valves. It's a good beginner instrument, and you can see it's got all the note names written on it, and it sounds a bit like this. So that's the instrument I'm going to be using. This activity works best when you have lots of children playing a melody line instrument, particularly the same instrument. It doesn't have to be as complex as a P-buzz, but you can do it if you teach whole class trumpet or clarinet, things like that. But also works well on recorder, glockenspiel. Not as good if it's untuned percussion, drums and things, unless you've got a mixture of instruments, drums and melody instruments. And the way I start this activity is I say to children, we're going to start by learning a little bit about playing a graphic score. And I'll just say to them, could you play for me this? And I'll go, after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they generally pick that up okay. I then say, okay, what about playing this one? And most of the children will pick this up as well, and you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So already they're differentiating between two symbols and the sounds that you would play differently for those symbols. I might do a few more, some arrows or things, but then after a few I like to do this. And it'll make the children laugh, and you go, ready, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll get some sort of strange sounds from them, but they'll enjoy it. But they're also picking up the idea that you can play music from shapes. I'll then wipe that off. Bear with. And I will then say to the children, now we're going to write our own piece of music as a class. And it's going to be called the Runaway Train. I picked the Runaway Train because it's got a good sort of imaginative title. They can think of lots of ideas. You can use other titles. You can do anything you want. You could base it around a topic they're doing at school. You could call it Vikings Adventure. You could call it, I don't know, anything you like. I'm going to stick with the Runaway Train. And so I get the children to give some ideas. I say, okay, so imagine the story. What's the first thing that happens? And a lot of children say this. They say, somebody shouts, all aboard. So I would say, okay, well, let's start with that. Okay, and then we'll go, okay, let's all do it. And they all shout, all aboard. And they say, okay, what's going to happen next? And they sort of think a little bit, and someone will probably put their hand up and say, the train moves out of the station. And you can sort of encourage them a bit more. You can say, how does it move? Is it fast? Is it slow? And they might say, oh, it's going to move slow and gradually get faster. At which point you might like to change the colour of the pen. You can stay on the same colour, but this sort of, it's a new section of the music. And you say, okay, this is going to represent slow getting fast. And you draw something like that. And you say, okay, let's try it from the beginning. All aboard. And you get the idea. They're following the shapes. You're doing a bit yourself, but you're getting the ideas from the class. You then probably end up, the train goes through on a little sort of steady adventure. Sometimes you like to get them to come up with sounds vocally. They might say chug, 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 or dum, 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 dum. And you draw something to help them represent that, to help them remember. So I might do this. Dum. So we've gone all aboard, slow getting fast, and then up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And then you say, okay, what's going to happen next? And they say, it goes over a hill. So you do a big hill. And then usually somebody says it ends with a big crash. So I'm going to end it with a big crash at the end. If you've got a nice big board, then you've got a bit more space. But here we've got our piece of music. And then you try it. And you say, okay, here we go. And I normally follow it along with my hand. And if I can, I play along at the same time. Today I'm just going to play it along. So we go, all aboard. Now it might not sound like the next Beethoven symphony, but the children have created it. They've come up with the ideas and then they've drawn them up and then they've played them themselves. They are looking at the shapes and creating the sound that they think in their heads is how it goes. It's a very simple introduction to reading graphic scores. You can then send them away with a bit of paper and say come up with your own, and they come back. Other variants you can do, which I've tried before, is you send them into small groups with a big bit of paper each that represents a different bit of the story. So you can have a much wider story. I did this with a space project once, and each child did a bit of the space journey as a graphic score, and then we came together and all played it. Hopefully you find that interesting. The full details are in here, along with some examples and ways of adapting it. You can see here we've got some pictures of the different ways we've done it before. We've got mountains, we had a bus journey, and all along here are ideas of ways to adapt it to make it suit your needs.